Welcome to the Inspiration North podcasts, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, Understanding People and Making Connections, with Laura Rothwell. We talk about wanting to make a difference, not growing the business for the sake of growth, but exploring what is enough, and how her famously weak wrists became a twist of fate in her career.
Clearly not afraid to give opinions via professional social media accounts, and if you want to succeed, you're going to have to forget about your principles, are two pieces of feedback Laura's had, which probably tells you everything you need to know. She didn't forget about her principles, and she swears a lot on Twitter. Laura is an accidental marketer of 17 years and founded Crystallised in 2013 to do marketing ethically, honestly, and creatively. They work with socially or culturally minded organisations to create beautiful conversations and change the world. Thank you ever so much, Laura, for coming on the Inspiration North podcast. How are you today?
I am pretty good today, thank you. It's very nice to be here. I've heard good things.
Excellent. So the first question we ask all of our guests, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I think I went through loads of ideas of things that I thought I wanted to be. On sort of vague rotation was being a lawyer. But that was because everyone in my family told me I should be a lawyer because I was so argumentative. So that was always up there. And then being a vet because I just loved animals. And then my careers advisor at school, they had this thing where they'd make you do this test and would tell you what you should be. And mine always was just a writer or a journalist. And I was pretty good at English. So those are the three things that were always like kicking about, but I never actually really cared. It was just, these are the things that are available to me almost that I ended up thinking about. But what I actually ended up doing originally was try to join the army.
Ditto.
Really? Yeah, which now looking back, just seems it was absolutely not the career for me at all. But I had a very distressing home life, you would say. And the motivator for that was to get away. So, and that just seemed perfect. I mean, they really get you with the recruitment because it was, you get looked after, you live here, you pay hardly any rent, you get 3 meals a day. You'll get paid, like they tell you what you're going to get paid the whole time. So it's like, in 2 years, you'll be earning 26 grand, which seemed like insane to me as a 16, 17-year-old. And all you have to do is possibly kill another human or maybe die. And thankfully, I broke my wrist at the army. Once you passed all the tests, you have to go and do a weekend physical, and I broke my wrist. So I couldn't carry on, and that was that. So the universe really helped me out there. Thank you.
Could you imagine us two in the army? It would have been hilarious.
I mean, yeah, I probably, if I'd have gone in when I was 16, 17, I was so malleable and I so craved structure because I'd never had it. I think I would have been brilliant at it because I was exactly what they wanted. But yeah, I'm glad I found my own way rather than the military way. Yes.
It is interesting that it was such an interesting career to potentially pursue. Yeah, I grew up as an army child, so we travelled around lots and stuff. So I think that's what we'd seen growing up.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. So broken wrist, what was next?
Yeah. So I was probably 17, 18, broke my wrist, met the sergeant major who was just such an absolute badass woman who was terrifying in every way, but just so delightful. And she basically was just like, look, go away, get your wrist better, come back. All you have to do is this one bit. Like everything else you've done, you've passed. So you just got to do this one bit and then you're in and everyone's happy. And so it was supposed to be, I don't know, eight weeks or something for the healing time. And I'm just so... I've learned to be more patient, but I'm a very impatient person by nature. And I was just like, I don't want to be in this house. I don't want to live like with my family. I need to get away. So I just moved to a flat and got a job. And the job was a marketing administrator for an events company. It was like $6,000 a year or something. Most of my job involved sending faxes.
Wow.
Or like just sitting by a fax machine contacting different venues. But it was just from that moment, really, all thoughts of being in the army was just gone. Because I'd found this thing, and for a while, obviously, when you're a junior in a job like that, you just do what you're told. But then I ended up being sort of mentored by the sales and marketing director, who was a woman called Helen, and she was also just seemed like so formidable. And I think I'd not really had any like very strong female role models that weren't family. So I had mums, aunties, grandma, but I didn't really know women in jobs or in careers. So Helen was just like, I think I probably worshipped her in a way. She always wore the most like snazziest of outfits, like coordinated, like she was in The Good Wife or something.
Wow.
I know, she was just absolutely the boss of everything. And then she really just got me into understanding that marketing was actually a thing and what it meant. And that was it. And I was like, oh, I found it. I found this thing that I can, and I was good at it. And that was enough for then it would just became like, it just felt normal and natural to stick with it for a bit. Yeah. And then here we are.
Well, that was a really quick podcast. Thanks, Laura.
20 years later, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, it's so interesting that the first thing that you try, the universe goes, nope, get back. Yeah. And then the second thing is like, yes, this is it.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I broke my wrist. And I think that was because, so I'd played a lot of netball at school and had broke my wrist a few times. So I did have famously weak wrists.
What do you think it was then about marketing then that made you think, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do?
I think I really count myself lucky that I didn't study it first. And I have since, and it's fine. But I think the doing of it really is what hooked me, because for me, it's like I've always been like fascinated by people and figuring people out, and individuals, but also just like societies. Why do things happen? Because it's so predictable in a way. Things are cyclical. The trends can be, forecast, and how humans behave in scenarios is documented, and lots of it can be well predicted, but yet still surprise you. And I love that, and that's what I think marketing is. Like I know all the theory and I get it, but I think it's just understanding people and making connections. And that was just what I found really fascinating. So I did psychology and sociology A levels when they were moving into whenever the year was that they decided they'd take A levels and call them AS levels. I did them in a year, which was again driven by my desperation to leave home. That's the two things for me, is like, why do people do what they do and why do societies do what they do? And then when I realized that like, to me, that's the absolute backbone of what marketing is. So to find a job where you could think about that all the time was amazing. And I'd never known it was a thing. Didn't know marketing as a profession or as a industry until I accidentally got that job.
It's crazy, isn't it? I was sort of thinking the same thing, because I was very sort of fascinated, because I grew up in Northern Ireland during the 80s, and there was like lots of bad things that happened, and it's that kind of, why do people do the things that they do? And that plus the TV show Cracker led me into psychology. And then turns out that that's not a job. Very sad, but still I'll get over it eventually. And it's interesting, you did a psychology A level too. So why didn't you pursue the psychology route?
Oh, so two reasons. Again, I knew I needed to earn money. I needed to be, I just had this desire, needed to be independent for loads of reasons. But also there was nothing about any of the stuff that I did in higher education that I really felt like I could do well or do with any kind of passion or interest for that amount of time. I just felt so ambivalent, and I don't regret it, but now I think I'd love to spend like a few years on a psychology degree or sociology or politics or history, like all of these things I love. But when I was 17, 18 in that home environment. I just couldn't comprehend it as it felt like such a luxury, not to mention even the finances. So yeah, it wasn't really an option for me. And also I am a bit like, if I don't know I'm going to be fucking great at something, I won't do it. So I didn't want to go into something for 4 years and fail, basically. So yeah.
So the first role, you moved from faxes,
yeah,
getting more into marketing, understanding that. Is that somewhere that you stayed for a while, or did you move on to something else after that?
I think so. Pretty much all my jobs I've done for 2 or 3 years, and then moved because I wanted more responsibility, more money, whatever it was. So yeah, I stayed there for a couple of years, and I knew then that I wanted to be in marketing. And then I applied and got a job with a agency that's owned by WPP. They own thousands of different ventures, and it was a market research agency, and it was a graduate job, even though I wasn't a graduate, but I was sort of had the work experience working on different research projects and making marketing recommendations for some really interesting, like really big clients now looking back, like AstraZeneca and Unilever and stuff like that. And then during my time, I was there about 3 years, I think, and during that time, so I started off doing admin, then doing some of the like account work, and then they set up their own marketing department to market their business, which they'd never had before, which is weird really, considering they are built on marketing. They didn't have their own marketing department. It was just all about new business. So then I moved again. So I had 3 jobs in that company basically, and that was and helped to set up and to do all the marketing for that company and grow their business. So that was there about 3.5 years, I think, and that was brilliant. I learned so much. It was very it's sort of like the opposite probably of any job I'd want now, because it was massive. People, probably so much structure there. I remember once being told that if you weren't working 20% overtime on your timesheets and you weren't working hard enough, and just that very I guess like stereotypical agency culture. Bean bags everywhere, lava lamps, you know.
Because they make such a difference.
Yeah. Everyone has to eat cake together on a Thursday, and then it means that you don't hate your job so much, you know. But I learned loads, and I'm really glad that I got to be in that very structured, traditional environment, because I think you have to learn it to know that you don't want to do it. And there's still stuff that you take away from it. Like I really learned like the value of data, of asking questions, and asking the right kind of questions, and how to get out of clients what you need. I think there is probably where I learned that you're never really told the full truth. And that's kind of what I love about marketing as well, because you're always getting a person's perspective, which means it's coloured by all of their experiences and their agenda. So that's like unpicking all of that is really fun to me.
Yeah. You are a real psychologist, aren't you?
Yeah. So that was great. And then I knew that I needed to leave, because I needed to try out doing marketing in a client organisation. Just so that I knew that I'd done everything and gathered all the data from all the places. So then I moved into fashion and retail, and that was probably where I really started to do the kind of marketing that I wanted to do, as opposed to doing all the learning. And it was a lot about experiences. So like, for example, I built a beach in a shopping centre, I think in the year of the recession, or just before the recession hit, because there was this trend of staycationing then, just like now. No one had any money, so I was like, let's make Birmingham, which is where I was, the centre of Birmingham, like a holiday destination. So we shipped in like 50 tons of sand and made this amazing beach, and we had graffiti artists and bars, and Heart Radio were there every day spinning tunes, and it was just like, it was probably the best Birmingham's ever been. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that, guys. And it was brilliant and everything. And it was probably the first time that I'd had an idea, delivered it, seen the results, and then won an award. Oh! So like the whole thing was just like, yes, I'm in the right place. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, that was cool.
Excellent. So what was next?
Well, then I had a bit of a breakdown. I'm sure we've all been there. As I've alluded to, so my childhood was a bit difficult. My parents, I had a step parent, and then
as you've been told.
He's like, don't talk about this. No one wants to hear about this. I told you before, keep it light. Alcoholic parents. Just quite a difficult home life. I guess like neglect. We didn't have any structure. There was quite a bit of violence and aggression, and it was just a difficult thing to deal with, which is why I left home as soon as I could. And my sister did the same. She's 3 years younger than me. But when I left home, the first thing that I did was went straight into a relationship that mimicked my home life. So I had a couple of years in a violent relationship, and that kind of left that and sort of started to get all my shit together and figure things out. Had a lot of therapy. And then in 2008, my stepdad passed away after a really short illness. He had sepsis, which I think was caused as a byproduct of alcoholism. And it meant that we all got like pulled back in to the family that we had not had anything to do with really for a long time. And it was just too much for me to have to go back to the house that we lived in, and it was too overwhelming, and I felt really like I was completely out of control, and all the bad things, the way my mum behaved, all of that stuff just still kept happening, and it just like I'd just gone back in time, like 8 years, 10 years, whatever it was. And then I felt also just like so obligated to look after her, even though we had all of this underlying tension and fury that I had towards her, but I also felt guilt that I'd not been there and that I should be there. So I moved back home for a bit to take care of her, and it was horrific, as you would imagine, completely in every way. And it was just like being a kid again, except I was a grown up, and it was a lot more aggression, and I was much less submissive. So it was really difficult. Then my work suffered because of it, because everything just started to seemingly just fall apart. And I tried to kill myself. And I didn't think I wanted to die. And it wasn't like premeditated in that sense. It wasn't something that had been building up or in a conscious way. I just wanted some like peace. And then so that was like that was one of the moments of my life where I was like, oh, holy shit, I need to pay attention. So I went to hospital and they fixed me, and I saw a psychiatrist who was brilliant. It's the best conversation I think I've had in my entire life with psychiatrist, who I honestly do believe was about 12. You know, when you see doctors and you're like, what?
You're not a doctor.
It's bring your kid to work day, and you wearing your dad and your mum's stethoscope and jacket.
But he was so brilliant, and I had to talk to him before they would even consider letting me go anywhere. So I had I remember just being in this hospital bed. Although it was traumatic, I felt so relieved that I wasn't dead, but also that someone was just listening to me. And we had a great chat. And the main thing that I remember him saying to me was that you've had a very normal reaction to a very abnormal set of circumstances. And when was this now? This was 12 years ago. And I still, like, that sentence is ingrained in my brain because it just made me feel so much better. And then I spent probably 6 months just trying to figure myself out and deal with all the stuff that had gone on, like in my childhood with the relationship that I'd had that was violent, and all of those things that had culminated, I guess, in that action. And I decided that what I wanted to do was, so I was 24 when this happened. I wanted to be a marketing director by the time I was 30. And that was the thing that I decided I wanted to do. And then I got a job with a commercial art organisation 6 months after the suicide attempt. And then within 18 months, I was marketing director. Thanks.
Doing a little clap. I'm also smiling to myself because we've got pigeons banging on the ceiling. You've got a dog barking. This is a great podcast. We've had lots of ninos.
I'm going to quickly
going to open
the window.
Okay, so you are now the marketing director.
I'm the marketing director. Yes. So this was a great job, but I also still wasn't, and will I ever be like completely healthy and balanced because I decided this is what I wanted to do. I worked all the time, too much, and people kept telling me, especially my dad, who was not really involved in my childhood distress so much. So we have quite a good relationship, and he kept saying, you work too much and you focus too much on work, and work isn't everything. And I would get really furious and defensive because I would just be like, why are you trying to take away this thing that I'm good at? It's my thing and I'm good at it, and I know that I can't do it forever, but I'm doing it now. And of course the company took advantage of that, because everyone, they would, wouldn't they? But it was brilliant nevertheless. I had managed a team of 10 people, and we basically, what we did was marketing for a whole range of artists and a whole range of art galleries in the UK and like around the world, on cruise ships as well. And so it was brilliant, and I got to meet and work with some amazing people. Like, we did art collections for Ronnie Wood and Bob Dylan and Stan Lee, God rest his soul. And it was so much fun and really hard work, all excellent things. But I did work too hard and I gave too much, and I've always had a bit of a problem with boundaries. I've still got a problem with boundaries. Two things happened. Firstly, I worked on a project with an artist which was at a museum, so he would be exhibiting at a museum, which for a commercial artist is a big deal, mostly because it massively increases the value of their work and their exposure and their reputation. So that was the first time that put me into Newcastle, because it was at the Great North Museum in town. So I was coming up here from Birmingham, like on a Sunday night or a Monday, and staying until Thursday for work, and then going back to Birmingham, working in the office on Friday, and then sleeping on Saturday. Just doing that for about 9 months. So what that showed me really quickly was, firstly, just like art in a different way. So I'd worked in art, which was just really was just about money. It was just about what can we sell this for, and everything was about sales targets, and it wasn't about so much the joy of art or the creation of it. And then it also showed me just the massive disparities in marketing in a commercial environment versus a public sector environment, which was interesting. I hadn't seen that before. So all of that was kind of buzzing around in my head, because those things, so that some of those things in terms of like, why was I marketing this product? Well, how did it matter to people? In what way did it matter beyond like superficial? were the things that I was starting to question and think about. And then I don't remember the full context of what happened to bring this about, but what ended up happening was my boss, who was very old school, been in the business for 40 years, started the business selling art out of the back of a van type of thing, now a millionaire, said to me in my office with like 5 of my team members, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to forget about your principles.
Wow.
Like, oh, that's how it is. Okay. So that was in my head. Yeah.
See ya.
Like been dumped into my brain, and then I got very ill because of work. So I got tonsillitis, and I was like, I'm fine, I can carry on working. Don't you worry about me. Anyway, it became bronchitis, and then it became pneumonia. And at each stage, my doctor was like, "You're going to get bronchitis. You're going to get pneumonia." And I was like, "Well, let's just see what
happens. We'll just keep working. Not going to stop, universe."
Yeah, just ridiculous. I was so ill, and then I ended up being ill for about 4 months. And again, like that was another "I've not been paying attention" moment. And the way that, of course, as most companies, I guess, would, they were like, "When are you coming back? What are you doing to get better?" Everything. What do you mean, what am I doing to get better? I'm taking 4 different antibiotics.
I'm watching Jeremy Kyle.
And so everything that had gone on kind of that past year and then being ill just made me think, I don't want to be here really, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then the universe interjected, because I met a man on Twitter who I started having nice chats with. And he lived in Newcastle. And we went on when I was a bit better from pneumonia, we went on a date and we had a great time. And then we've basically been together ever since.
Oh,
so
that was like, oh. You can see that little meme from Zootropolis with the tiger. Oh.
So that sort of gave me a bit of a kick, really, and I thought, I'm just going to start my own business. And now I didn't think this through. There was not very much thought. There was no plan. There was just, I don't want to be in this job. I'm a marketing director and I know that I love that and I'm good at doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I would naturally go next. And also now I've got this thing with my principles. I can't forget about them. They're there. And so I started Crystallised with the idea of, I want to do marketing, which benefits people legitimately in their soul, rather than on their walls or with things. So I guess slightly again back to experiences, and just really wanting to do something that felt like it made a difference and not be that typical marketeer of having everything be about the telling the right story in inverted commas. Like, I don't want to tell the right story. I don't want to have to craft something or create it. I want you to do something brilliant that I can tell people about, which then has shaped kind of who we work with, because not that marketeers are liars, but in previous jobs I have been asked to tell the story that will make this sell, rather than, well, why don't we just make the thing that people want to buy instead of trying to like tart it up at the end.
Spin it.
Yeah, spin it, exactly. So that was what I knew I wanted to do. Because I'd seen the arts in my previous job, and I knew that I could make a difference there as well, because it's still the case now, I think, that there's types of marketing activity that happen in public sector, the arts and funded organisations, by and large, is probably 4 or 5 years behind the types of things that happen in the commercial sector. So there's lots of learning to be had there without wholesale going one way or the other. So that was kind of how everything came about, really. It was me needing something more meaningful and thinking I actually could make a difference, and there was a place where I could be useful. And decided to move to Newcastle because that's where my partner then, who is now my husband, was. And so I moved to set up a business, do marketing in the arts, in the year, I think, that Newcastle Council cut like £250 million from its from its budget, and all the arts were just being decimated. But I didn't know any of those things in depth, and I almost didn't really care. And I think that's part of it is ignorance, and part of it is really believing that you've got a good idea and that you can do something and that you'll just figure it out as you go. I've never really been scared of the business. And even now, in this whole fucking shit show that we're in, I still think the business idea and what we do is important. And what's the worst that could happen? I'll just figure it out. So I moved in 2013. My first client was Berwick Film Festival, doing their marketing. And then it's just grown from then, really. And it's just become a proper thing with people in it.
It's like accidentally.
Yeah, totally accidentally, because I didn't think necessarily, again, when I started it wasn't that I wanted to be an employer necessarily, or I wanted to have a team. It was just wanting to do good work and do marketing a bit differently and connect people with stuff that matters. And I still now, I think growth isn't really my thing. I think we, like, in general, we sort of have this idea of success being about more clients, more people, more turnover. And that's not for me, really. I think I'm really interested at the minute, like, in the idea of enough, like if Crystallised does good work with the clients that we care about, and it makes a difference to them and their audiences, and everyone who works for Crystallised gets paid properly, why do we need more? Because I don't want to be like a millionaire. I don't need to hoard money in the business. I just want to do good work. So I find that's interesting, because I'd be happy, probably, we're a team of 4, and everyone's always like, what's your next hire going to be? I don't know. Will there be? Yeah, exactly. I don't think that is necessarily a measure of success, but it's hard to break away from it because that's what you were always told.
But they loved you in NatWest.
Oh my God, it was it's like, I was just honestly debating whether to tell this story. I'm going to tell it. You can decide afterwards if you want to keep it. So I was on the NatWest. What's it called again?
Entrepreneur Accelerator. Only because I had to remember it the other week, because I did another
That's so rude. I don't mean it to sound rude. It was brilliant. It absolutely like mindset changing for me. My mentor was incredible and really made me think really differently about, not about the business, but about myself, I think, like owning my own power. Yeah. Being accountable and knowing, yes, you can fucking do it because you are doing it. So just get on with it and stop like second guessing yourself every 7 minutes. But I did this thing. So they had this thing called a power panel where basically you as an entrepreneur go in front of 3 or 4 very important and successful business people, and often people means men.
Yep.
And you have to prepare like a little pitch beforehand, and the premise is that you're trying to get investment, even if you're not, just that whole process is useful and interesting. So I did all of that, and then we had the meeting, and it was really interesting and eye-opening because in some ways they were very complimentary about me and what I'd achieved. But then they were also sort of like, well, you could just move to London and earn 400 grand a year as a marketing director. So why are you bothering with this business that turns over 200 grand a year? And I was like, oh, yeah, but I absolutely don't want to do that. Nothing about that is attractive to me.
All about the money.
Yeah. Well, and I said that basically. I was like, well, I've worked myself into pneumonia. I don't need to work myself into something else. And it wouldn't be meaningful. And it doesn't matter, because I think the other thing that I've learned that I value is being able to give people a job. That's quite important to me because I didn't know anything about what marketing was. And it was completely by accident I got the job. So if I think like the idea of a business being a responsible citizen is still important. So if we can give, even if it's just 3 or 4 jobs, that's amazing to someone's life and to their ongoing career in marketing. So yeah, that was really interesting because a lot of what they focus on is about scaling and growing. And I'm not saying I don't want to have a profitable business, obviously, but if we only need 200 grand, or we only need 250 grand so everyone can be paid properly and we exist, why do we need to be planning to reach 1 million then?
Yeah. Because you've got principles.
Those fucking principles.
But it's, no, and it's sustainability as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think there's also, I don't always want to be chasing something. Like I've worked in environments where everything is about chasing a monetary target, and it's stressful, and it's hard, and your efforts go in the wrong places, I think. So in one of my previous roles, when I was a marketing director, the MD had said to me that he wanted to target make financial incentives for the marketing team based on how many emails they would send out or how many tweets. And I was just like, well, then we'll just send out 50 emails. That's not, and he was like, yeah, but we might sell more. I was like, yeah, or all of our customers will be furious. And it's that sort of thing. I think there's that you shift the entire culture when everything becomes about money. And in some places and with some people that maybe that's good and maybe that works, but it's not for me.
No, it's fascinating.
What I think is a good almost final summary with what you've said, when you get into a business, you often get into it because of those principles. I want to do something where I make the decisions, my values are out on display, and I do this because I'm passionate about it. But if you then muddy the waters with this constant need for growth, I need to hire more people, all my processes need to become more formalized, you then end up, we've seen lots of instances where you recreate the corporate environment that you left because of all the process, the bureaucracy, and you're no longer doing the work you enjoy. You're managing the people, the process, the performance, pleasing investors. So I think it's an important lesson for entrepreneurs that you don't lose those principles and the reason you got into doing the business in the first place.
Yeah, totally. Like, what is it that makes you excited? Like, when the first time I worked in marketing, and I still feel it now, like it's like my brain lights up. That's how I feel when there's a project or a thing that you can get your teeth into that you really, it's like, when everything aligns. Like, so we Crystallised, that's what I want to feel like every day, is that everything aligns so that my soul is happy because we're working with clients that we really believe in. Then my brain is challenged because I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. There's so many things we can do. And also that I'm well and healthy and I'm not working, 80-hour weeks and feeling like I'm still not doing anything. Yeah, like that you have to, I think, always trying to remember why you're doing it. And then that's we talk about this all the time at Crystallised, like, but yes, but why, but why, but why? And with our clients as well, just always why. And you should be able to answer almost infinite whys.
Yeah.
And you can't, and you're stuck. There's a blockage, and it's hard. I mean, and it's total privilege as well to be able to be like, oh, I want a job where my heart and my soul and my health is all aligned. Who do I think I am? But that's what I want, and I know that. Well, we have built it, and I think to start to make it about money just changes everything. And I know I'm sounding really anti-capitalist, and I probably am a bit anti-capitalist in a way, which I recognise as a massive sort of dichotomy between running a business and it's the world we live in, isn't it? But I just think balance, better, not more, is my motto.
Yeah, I get into trouble all the time because it's obviously people not profit. No,
yeah,
people over profits, purpose over profits, and there's no such thing as competition. It's all collaboration.
Yes, I absolutely love this idea that the competition isn't a real thing.
No.
And when I try to talk to people about it, it's like I'm talking a different language.
Yeah, I get that. And it's like, who are your competitors? It's like, we have no competitors. We'll just work with anyone.
There's enough for us all.
There is enough for us all.
There is enough. And again, like, I don't want to be chasing a competitor, and it's not necessary. But we're trained, aren't we, to believe that we all have to compete all the time. We all have to do more, do better, quicker, more effective, earn more money. Everything like this, what we grow up, our whole careers is like based on this thing. So when you're not doing it, like, I absolutely feel like sometimes I'm being pulled back into it and a question like, is this right actually? Am I just being a ridiculous hippie and pursuing all of these things for my own sake rather than the sake of the business? But also, we're going to be 8 years old, and we are going to get through the pandemic, and we are going to carry on doing what we're doing. But it can't be that bad.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe in competition either, and I love the idea of like talking to people about it, because you can see in their faces that they're not with you.
They don't get it.
It's fine. You're not enlightened yet, but strap in, give me 3 hours and I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Like, competition isn't a real thing.
Yeah. It's funny. You're
not
a proper pirate.
It's also not sustainable, is it? Like, we can't live in an economy that is continuously about growth. It's not doable. Like, and even just like this year, when you've seen things like BA and Virgin, these massive brands that are in dire straits because of what's happened, and it's because everything has become about shareholder value.
Yeah.
Which creates, I've often found, the wrong actions. Just what you said before about, let's send more emails out, let's get on the phones and make more calls, and you end up, because you're constantly striving for 2% growth, 5% growth, you end up moving away from the reason we should be in business and serving customers and doing good. And so I totally buy into the purpose, the values. There's such a lack of it, I think. I mean, you probably see it more than we do, but how many BS mission statements do you see and values of a company, and you think there's nothing there to buy into? It's I'll get off my little soapbox.
Shall we go to the quick fire round, James?
Yes. So question number 1. So in 2021, post-COVID, we hold an epic feast in your honor. What food would we serve?
Oh my God, this is a great question. Okay. This feels like I'm on the Off Menu podcast. Have you listened to the Off Menu podcast?
No.
Apple and James Acaster, 2 great comedians, just talk to people about their ideal meals.
Cool. That sounds amazing.
Okay. I absolutely love, the first thing that comes to mind, love truffle oil, truffle zest, everything about it. And it feels like an incredible, amazing treat. And I can say every time I eat it, I hardly ever eat it, but that's just an absolute joy. So I would probably have truffle fries, so like thin cooked fries with truffle and parmesan. That would definitely be in there. I also absolutely love anything with rose water in. Is it a Syrian pudding, which is kind of like rice pudding, but it's just loaded with rose water and pistachio.
Fascinating.
Delightful. One of the first holidays me and my husband went on, we went to this restaurant called the Syrian Friendship Club.
Oh,
I know, it was the cutest. And it was like that kind of place where you think everything seems ridiculously cheap, and then you really realise very quickly that you've overordered. And we had this massive banquet of all this amazing Syrian food, and I absolutely felt like there was no way we were eating a dessert because we'd had all this amazing bread and kebabs and just 4 different types of hummus. And then the waiter came over and said, "You absolutely have to have this. It's a special dessert and it's got rose water in it." I was like, sold. Bring me a vat of it. So yeah, anything with truffle in, anything with rose water in. And I've also stopped drinking during lockdown.
Wow, well done.
Which is a big thing for me because I fucking love wine. Anyway, so I would have at this feast, if it was like the hypothetical feast, I would have probably a bottle of Sancerre.
Yummy.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get people to come along to that.
I'm starving now. Where's this Syrian restaurant?
Oh, Cyprus.
Oh, great. Which part's like no? It's like we need to book some flights.
What I basically said is I would like chips and rice pudding.
Yeah.
I'm 5 years old apparently.
Fine.
And some Ribena.
Sancerre, sweetheart. Okay, question number 2. If you could work with any company in the whole wide world, which one would you choose as clients?
God, that's such an interesting question, because my initial thoughts would go to like the major, brilliant, ethical players like Patagonia. But then I'm like, well, they've already got it nailed, haven't they? Where's the challenge for me? What I want to do and what I like doing is seeing the journey. So taking something that is, maybe not evil, but
tobacco company. No.
Yeah, exactly. That's really hard. I don't think I could give a brand name. I think it's companies that are. So here's a good example. We recently won this client called Kino Classica, and they're the only Russian film foundation in the UK. They are going to launch a video on demand platform, and their whole thing is about the protection, archive, and screening of Russian film. And no one else does what they do. It's a really small team. They're absolutely passionate about it. They're all either have lived in Russia, from Russia, and now in the UK. And they are so open as a team. They really have that growth mindset that we learn so much about. Is they completely embody it. And working with them is just a delight every single time. And we have weekly, we're working with them for a year to deliver marketing, but we're also teaching them marketing. And every time I speak to them, they're so open, they question everything, they receive ideas, and they're creative, and they want to explore, and it's amazing. And I love it. And often we have clients, and I'm sure everybody does in service businesses, where they'll say, this is what we want, and this is how you need to do it, and I need you to do it right now. And that's hard. In general, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to be told what to do, full stop. But also there's that idea of, but why? But why? And I need to understand all the whys. And often they don't know the whys. They just know they want this press release or whatever it is. So yeah, that's what makes me excited, is the people who are ready to try things and do something different and be open to everyone's expertise. But if not that, then Patagonia.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's good. Question number 3. Which two films would you like to combine into one?
Oh my God. Okay. Let me take
comfy.
So I'm going to pick a couple of niche films, but then I'll do you a couple of mainstream ones as well, just in case for cover all audiences, you know. So there's a film called Wiener Dog, which is about a little puppy, Dachshund, and it's sort of told from his perspective of going to lots of different foster homes and hanging out with different humans, who are all in their own way unusual and flawed and quirky and problematic and delightful. And it's just like the full gamut of humanity from the eyes of a dog being a dog, and it's just so lovely and moving. And it's sort of presented in like little short vignettes, so it almost feels like you're watching lots of little short films together about this dog's life. So that's a brilliant film. And then there's also a film called Sightseers, which is a British film, and it's about a couple, maybe like mid-30s couple, who are a bit kind of on the edges of society, that they're a bit different and a bit slightly maybe a bit ostracized, and the woman lives with her mum, who is overbearing and awful to her. And so they go on a caravanning holiday together, and what eventually happens is they end up killing a few people. And it's a dark comedy about kind of their relationship and how they end up becoming murderers. So I'd really enjoy those two films to be combined, whereby Wiener Dog could go on the holidays with the Sightseers
and do all the killing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Oh dear me. So what's the mainstream?
Okay, mainstream film combinations. I love all the Deadpools. I think Ryan Reynolds is absolutely brilliant in those films. And do you not, is it me, or is it just absolutely amazing to think that Ryan Reynolds was Van Wilder?
Yes.
What? I can't comprehend those two, that as a journey for him.
No.
I mean, it's really done well. So yeah, Deadpool, which I think is brilliant. And then what would be nice with Deadpool? What's Deadpool missing?
Nothing. It's perfect. A musical.
Yes,
there is a musical bit in the second one, isn't there?
Maybe a little bit more music, because he has got a bit of rhythm, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And the thing about musicals for me is mostly I hate them. Oh, but I do love Sound of Music.
Yes.
Do you know, I was just about to say The Sound of Deadpool. The combination.
There's Nazis, yeah.
And actually, there's quite a bit of peril in The Sound of Music, isn't there? Which I think Deadpool could probably get involved with quite well.
Yeah.
The hills are alive with the sound of explosions and gunfire and samurai swords.
That would be really nice. Yeah. Let's go with that. The Sound of Deadpool.
Awesome.
By Ryan Van Wilder Reynolds.
I love your imagination. It's brilliant. Okay, so the question we ask all of our guests is, if you could go back in a time machine to your 18-year-old self and have a glass of wine with her, what advice would you give her?
I always find these questions really interesting, because all the advice that I would give her, I need to have lived it to be able to give the advice. And so even though there's been lots of very challenging and difficult and stressful times, I wouldn't change anything that's ever happened in my life, because it has given me all the perspective that I've got now. But I think probably one of the main things that I would say, and that I have a real problem with, and always probably will in a way, is just about believing in yourself and like having that confidence to accept what you're good at and stop being so like sort of self-deprecating, I guess, or because like look at the evidence for your thought process rather than just having the thoughts. Because I even now, like even every time I pitch to a client and we win something, every time I think, what if I can't do it this time? What if I don't know what I'm doing? What if it turns out I've been shit at everything all along? I'm still that now, and it's nearly 8 years of this, and nearly like whatever it is, 19 years in marketing, and I still think it. And I just feel like and I'm sure I know loads of women think like that. If we could just remove that, even just a bit, like even just 10%, knock that down, imagine what could be achieved. So yeah, I'd say probably that would be my big bit of advice for myself at 18 and also at 28 and also now.
Yes, and to all women, yes.
Yeah, to all women all the time, forever.
And quite a lot of men as well. Ones that listen. James would listen.
Yes, indeed. So for our listeners, if you would like to follow or get in touch best place is Twitter. So go to @_Laura Wath. I can't even say that. Laura Rothwell. Best place to go is @_Laura Rothwell_. And yes, I guess it just leaves us to say thank you so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed chatting, hearing your story. So yes, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Having me. It's been absolutely lovely.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.